Hi, welcome to this series of videos exploring the safeguarding features of NetSupport DNA. Here at NetSupport, we work really closely with school counsellors, safeguarding leads, local authorities, and the Internet Watch Foundation, some leading charities, and young people themselves to ensure that the tools we have available to us and for you are relevant, effective, and most importantly, up to date and secure. In this series of videos, we will be exploring all the safeguarding aspects you can explore with inside NetSupport DNA. We hope you find these videos useful. Thanks. Hi, welcome to this section looking at NetSupport DNA. One of the things that makes it really powerful in DNA to find out who your users are, where they are, what PCs they're using, what PCs you have, so forth and so on, comes from this tree view here on the left hand side, and we can view information about our domain, our users, so forth and so on by looking at these different areas here. Now you've got a slight ribbonized kind of area just here with these tabs across the top, so you can actually see all your PCs. You can go into here and see all of your users. So for example, if I go into students here in year 7, I can see I've got two year 7 users, Brandon and Tommy. And when I'm looking at these different students, I can click onto any of these and I can see individually what they've been doing. So I've got 13 new phrases or matches. I can see they haven't printed anything. I can see they've got no web pages open, but they've used 6 applications today. And if I wanted to dive deeper into those things, I can do that very easily by clicking on there, and it tells me the information that I want to hear about Brandon. Equally, I could click on the whole level above and it will show me for everybody in year 7, so forth and so on. So having this tree view here for PCs, users, devices, and any that might have just been discovered is a really simple, easy way to manage and see everything you want to see in any given space. A software which is super useful for the designated safeguarding lead within your school or organisation. There's some great features that help you to keep a really closer eye on those vulnerable students you have within your organisation. So you can do that really simply. You can see that on the left hand side in the tree view we just talked about, I've got a section here that says vulnerable students, and if I go into here I can see there's a bunch of vulnerable students in here. We've got Al Kingsley, we've got a demo example here, and Sue. And as you sort of work through your main directory of users, let's say you've got a student who has now been identified as being vulnerable, you can add those really quickly into that dynamic group by going right click and just choosing the option vulnerable students. From there you'll see that Brandon's now been added into that group. If you were to put someone in there by mistake, you can just right click on them again and just choose vulnerable students again, and it will remove them, put them straight back into their group just here. But the beauty of doing that means that you can actually see in a glance and a heartbeat any issues related to some of your vulnerable students within your school. Now that in practice may often be going into the e-safety section just here, so you can see directly within here we've got some the phrase cloud has come up, and now this is showing it just for the user Brandon. As you can see, user Brandon just at the top here. But if you go into your overarching view within the tree view and click onto there, that will re-hit and sort of rebuild that phrase cloud for the entire organisation. And what's lovely as well with this feature is actually if you hover over any of these keywords, if you didn't know what a pre-teen goddess was, for example, you can get a little bit of information about what those different things mean just by hovering over them as well. And so that's how we can use how safeguarding staff can flag at-risk students on the system. That dynamic group is provided for you as well down the bottom here as we just talked through there. Another fantastic feature related to a more granular control within DNA for access to restricted websites and having that change for different year groups is the ability to actually set things up particularly for a specific group of people. Now you can create those groups in lots of different ways, but the way in which you get into there and actually make those changes is simply by going to settings here at the top. And when you're in settings, you want to just manage those existing profiles you have pulled across into DNA. So we choose the option Manage Existing Profiles. Once we're in here, we'll change to the profile group that we want to actually change. So in this instance, I want to give Year 9 access to, let's say, Facebook for some research that they're doing. So I can go to Year 9, and from there I would choose the option Settings on the right-hand side just here. And that brings up the option to get into lots of different areas for changes, particularly for that particular profile for year 9. So obviously, I'm going to be going into internet metering in a second, but let's just take a second to look at the other options that are in here, because I think it's quite interesting. So we can change things around print monitoring, USB device control. It might be that older students are allowed to use USB devices. However you want to sort of think about these things, alerting, reporting a concern, all these different options can be tweaked now, particularly for that particular profile. I'm going to change and tweak internet metering. So I go into here, and there's lots of information here, which is super helpful, but to actually change that URL list and do it manually, so you can choose whichever sites you want that particular year group profile to be able to work with, simply go to manage. And once you're in there, you can drop on the little arrow here, go to add URL, and just put in the URL that you want to use. So I'll just type in https://facebook.com. Once that's typed in, I can simply go to OK. It drops it in there. I hit OK. I have to approve that. Straight away, happy days. The job is done. And so all the students in year 7, year 8 would not have access to that, but year 9 would. If you wanted to remove that later on, it's the same process again. Come back into this point here, go back to manage, and then click on the URL that they had approved, which was Facebook, and then simply remove it away again. Click OK, hit yes, so the changes take effect straight away, and the job is done. As you'll have noticed, the dashboard here within NetSupport DNA gives you lots of information. I can see, for example, there's been 116 hardware changes, 36 programs installed, so forth and so on. This section is going to explore internet metering. This is something where you can get to see the various websites that children and others within your school have been visiting across the course of any given time period. The internet metering module provides a detailed summary of all the internet activity on each PC by students, including the start and finish times for each URL visited and the active time spent on a page. And the results can be viewed just like we could a moment ago in the previous video, looking at the e-safety concerns with triggered keywords and things. Here we can actually look on a granular level for each year group or whatever setting you want by device or user, so forth and so on. So to get into this section, I simply go to Internet Metering here on the top just here. And by selecting that, I can now see all of the sites that have been visited across the given time period. So some of those things are quite nice and approved, and some of them we probably wouldn't want students to be looking at, like Roblox and Minecraft and so forth and so on. Now, that's viewing that information to me on a whole sort of school site level. Okay, so I've got netsupport.local selected here. But if I was to go, for example, into year 7, just here, it then changes, as you can see, and it shows me the sites that have been visited by year 7, or if I go to year 8, equally those sites visited for year 8, although there are none there, and then in for year 9, like so. So that's really, really useful. And results can be viewed by device, user, group, so forth and so on. That's really important. Online safety requirements in accordance with things like Prevent Duty and the KICSI and SIPA laws. Most states and areas around the world, do need to have some kind of appropriate levels of internet metering in place. It's important to note that NetSupport DNA is not a filtering solution. This is an additional tool that enables you granular control, applying policies to give more bespoke and time-based control over your preferences around the access that students in your school can have access to. So within NetSupport DNA, internet usage can be fully managed. We can have lists of approved and restricted URLs, and we can access that for going to our URL lists option just here. So these will be your available sites, your approved sites, your restricted sites, so forth and so on. And you can add these in very simply by going to the drop down, adding in URLs there. Same just here. And if there's anything you wanted to remove from these lists, simply click on to one of them and choose remove. Go into here, we can remove, so forth and so on. It would be easy to restrict everything that could be seen as being a risk, but the reality is that that's impractical, because if you block everything, then you don't have the opportunity that the internet can bring for learning, for research, for discovery, so forth and so on. So because DNA has been designed in a way that it has, it really does promote digital monitoring and encourages students to act responsibly when they're online. Now, the benefit of working like this is that you can actually easily bring in longer lists of approved and restricted URLs, including those filtering lists such as those from the Counterterrorism Internet Referral Unit, and sub and main URLs can be applied centrally in one lock stock way. So yes, you've got your URL list option here. The drop down here provides things where you can do things to a specific year group. We can also do through the option just here is to actually bring in a complete URL list from somewhere else. You can copy it from one of your lists if you've already got one built in within the whole site as well. There are many ways in which you can actually bring together a really comprehensive coverage to ensure your students are kept safe and shepherded in the right direction to help them make those right choices around their online safety or their online work, promoting strong digital citizenship. The keyword and phrase monitoring features within NetSupport DNA are exceedingly powerful and really, really useful. The database of phrases and keywords that are held within NetSupport DNA, they come bundled within inside the software. There's a pre-supplied eSafety database of keywords and phrases. There's more than 14,000 terms in there, and the database covers a wide range of topics from self-harm, gambling, bullying, racism, to risks of radicalisation, drugs, sexual exploitation, and more. Now, these terms are regularly updated, and we can see these things actually in place. So rather than talk about it, I'll talk and show at the same time, so you can see what that might look like. So I've chosen my student group here at the top at netsupport.local. I then go to the area at the top here which says eSafety. If I go straight into here, I then get the extended menu across here. From here, I can go on to the phrase cloud option, and I can see all those keywords there. And as I shared in the previous video, you can see what these different terms mean if I click onto them. And when we sort of go onto them, we can click deeper into them and get some more information on those phrases as well. If you want to see what phrases there are within inside here as well, we go on to the eSafety option here and click on the little drop down. We can then go to manage keywords and phrases, and you can see all of those keywords that are in there. Now, what's lovely about this is not only can you get to see all of the terms that are in here, and I'm not going to scroll through all of them given that there's 14,000 plus in here, but in a world where language changes all of the time, it may well be that you've come across a new word in your work as a designated safeguarding lead or network manager or someone working within the school. As a safeguarding user here on NetSupport DNA, what you can do is you can simply go to the word add here on the right hand side, and you can put the phrase in here. You can give it a little description. You can then categorize it, talk about what risk it brings through all of it, and then simply use add, and that will put that word, that phrase, into your list of keywords and phrases that will trigger different responses. And then recognizing that every school is different, and we all know that context is super important with these things, but it may well be that you've got a variety of languages within your school. You'd be very pleased to learn that NetSupport DNA comes with lots of different language packs. As you can see, we've got the default English here, but this one's got the German language pack in there. If you want to add some other languages in there, if that's suitable for your setting, simply click on the drop down just here, tick the other languages which are relevant for your setting. So let's say we want Polish, and Lithuanian and Italian and Arabic. Just tick the ones that you want, hit OK just here. You then add those packs directly into here. You can now see the Arabic words in here and so forth and so on. Hit OK, and that will then add all of that. Obviously, if you want to notify agents of the changes, you can do that or not, entirely up to you. I'll just say yes, and that will now affect those changes from here on in. Simple. So you spent some time looking at the phrase cloud already, and as you might have gathered from how I'm presenting it here, it's a fantastic feature that I'm really excited about and love as being a really great feature built into the safeguarding elements within NetSupport DNA. But one thing we haven't covered yet is the ability to actually look at this on a more granular level. Now, at the moment, I've got NetSupport Local turned sort of selected here at the top. That's great, and that gives me an overview of all the sort of triggers and designated safeguarding leads tell me they love this feature because it enables them to see, in a heartbeat, really, really quickly what the trending topics are, the things that people are looking at most within their actual school. But I wanted to actually sort of dive a bit deeper into this and see what trending topics are within different year groups. Now, in this demonstration setup, we've got year 7, 8 and 9. There aren't many schools which are just year 7, 8 and 9. We'd have year 10, 11, 12, 13, or if we're a primary school, obviously, right through those year groups, Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2. But what I can do is I can actually click onto the year here, and it will rebuild the phrase cloud for me, so that I can see what the trending topics are for that particular year. So, as you might expect, Roblox is something which is coming up quite frequently in year 7. But if I jump to year 9, we'll see different kinds of words coming up there. Okay, so that's a great way of being able to do that. Now, the phrase cloud's super useful, and just to reinforce this message, you can actually click onto any of these. And before I click onto any of these, actually, it's useful to notice that you can just hover over these and it'll explain what these words actually mean. If I click onto, let's say, Stardust, one occurrence, go in here, and it gives me more information. So yes, I know that it's a slang term for cocaine, but it tells me it was actually typed in by Peter, and what they typed, what tool they were using, where they typed it, what PC they were on, what time they did it, what risk index it has associated with it, all those different things. So it gives you that sort of useful contextual information, and you can do so, like I shared, by year group, by devices, by classes, and it's a great opportunity to actually, if we think about Roblox coming up, seen quite large in here. As designated safeguarding lead, looking at this sort of information, this could be really helpful for me to sort of feed through to the head of year 7. If lots of drug terms are coming up, for example, we've got hallucinogens here, we've got, let's see if we've got some more sort of drug-related terms in here. Yes, we've got another one here for cocaine here. So if you find a trending topic within here, this may well be something that could feed through into a year group assembly. If it's a group of students who are regularly typing these sort of things in, you could have a sort of peer session held together, starting those conversations so that things are really open and as you might want them to have. It's important to know and share with your young people as well that these things are happening. Online safety is school-wide, and students and staff need to know that these things are in place to support them. It really helps the school as well know if needs be, are there any sort of training issues that might be needed around this. Now, it is useful that we have got these features where we can hover over and learn about these things. In actual fact, speaking with people with responsibility for safeguarding in schools, they tell me that actually having this little ability to get the definitions up like this is a form of CPD in and of itself. You learn new things from what the children are typing in. So there you go, phrase cloud and how you can actually look at those on a granular level and some of the ways in which you might want to use that to inform what you're actually doing inside your school. NetSupport DNA safeguarding features, as we've discussed previously, do trigger events. Now, a fantastic way of seeing those, as we've discussed previously, is this brilliant phrase cloud that shows us trending topics, where the words that come out larger have triggered more responses than those that are smaller. But on top of all of this, if you go into any of these and dive deeper, let's check out suicidal just here, we can see these are actually captured as individual events. This is great. You can get lots of information from this view here. You can see whether it's an in-progress activity, where it's happened, who was logged on, what they've typed and searched for, any sources that are there, the time, and the risk index is all visible here. What we can actually do on top of this, though, is then dive deeper into the information to help give us more context, think about how it's happened, so forth and so on. So if I double-click onto this entry here, we can see we've now got more information. And additional to the information we can see here, source and keyword severity, urgent priorities, so forth and so on. Across the top here, from the review section, we can go into the screenshot section when a keyword is triggered. DNA safeguarding features will take a screenshot of that event. So let's just make that a little bit bigger so you can see it here. There's a screenshot of the student who's typed in this search, what to do if I feel suicidal, in here. And what DNA will also do when it's a high severity trigger, in the video section, it will record a video of what's actually happening at any given time as well. So if I hit the play button here, we'll see the student typing in that search term as well. So this is really, really useful. According to how severe these are, staff can view these as a simple text record. We saw that in the review tab there. Obviously, we've seen the screenshots, and with a high severity instance, the screen recording is there as well. And for all the events, you can review information such as the student name, the device being used, the time it took place, as well as that risk index analysis. This is really useful background information. As we know, all things are contextual. It may well be that we've got lots of these responses and we can see that they're taking place all in the same room. So maybe actually it's something where a student is in a PSHE lesson and they're researching these sorts of things where they can find support if they're feeling a little bit glum and down, compared to somebody who's genuinely looking for support, who is actually feeling suicidal. Using this information, we can contextually then respond in a way which best fits our school, our students, and our circumstances. As with many things in life, context is of paramount importance, and the contextual intelligence that we have within NetSupport DNA and its safeguarding features is super important. The risk index assesses the context and the history of a student's current activities, the device use, time of day, the websites they've visited in that particular session, the school, the community, and you can even share this contextual intelligence across the entire district or trust. Now, you can monitor the concerning activity in a variety of languages. It could be your student's first language. Slang terms are also included and taken into account, which can be crucial intercepting inappropriate communications of young people who can sometimes appear to have their own language. But certainly, working with international schools, particularly British international schools overseas, where lots of students have English as a second language, you often don't pick up those sort of key words in conversation in the corridor, but not to worry, in a digital sense, NetSupport DNA absolutely has you covered. And so you have this contextual intelligence and it gives you this risk index related directly to that. So for example, if I go into unwanted attention here, we've got some information about this. We've got Peter who's typed unwanted attention in here. Well, because it's got a risk index of 15, it's quite low. It's not a repeated thing. Now, it does in the description area here tell us it could indicate a possible stalking or grooming scenario. So important to have a look at these sort of things, but certainly when we compare it to something like, let's say, suicidal just here, we can see obviously the risk index is much higher. It could be something particularly around the fact that this person has actually entered searches around suicide 4 times, hence the reason why the risk index is much higher. All of these things, all these triggers could be something quite dangerous, but the contextual risk analysis here really does help pinpoint those areas which could be of most concern. So the way that risk index works, it looks at these devices and time used and so forth and so on. But the risk, as I say, can increase based upon how often the student sort of repeatedly searches e-safety topics such as suicide. It could be something that happens out of hours, in hours, or in an unmonitored setting such as in the learning resource centre or a library. A high risk index could result from one of these kind of triggers as well. A lower risk index rating could come from searching a lower risk keyword in a local application during school hours that could have been used for curriculum topics. The contextual intelligence takes all of these things into consideration and allows you to prioritise those genuinely high risk alerts. Now, obviously, not all of these safeguarding features are available to all people. You have special safeguarding users, and you can see who they are up here once you are logged in. And when you are a safeguarding user, you get more ability to dive deeper into the reports and all these things, and we'll cover that later in a further section. But I thought it important to mention that there's a different experience in DNA depending on whether you are in as an eSafety administrator, an eSafety user, safeguarding user, or whether you're somebody like the network manager who uses DNA for other purposes. Another great feature with inside NetSupport DNA is the ability to, around safeguarding, to keep track of events. Now, using the phrase cloud as your entry point, we'll go into this suicidal section here again, click onto here. We can see there's 4 occurrences. But what's lovely is once you go into any of these, let's choose this one here, the third one down, for example. What's lovely is that whilst you can see the review of the notes, you can see where things are at and who's been working on it and so forth and so on. We can see the screenshot, we can see the video, so forth and so on. But the information that's in here is easily shareable. And as you'll probably notice, as I move through these various tabs on the ribbon, if I go to review, I can copy it, I can look at the history related to it, I can see who's actually been involved in viewing these different things and to who's viewed the screenshot. If I go into the video and look at the history here, I can see who's viewed the video and been watching it back through. I can email this information, I can print it out, I can take a snapshot of it, I can bookmark it, export the video on video, or if I go to screenshot, I can save that screenshot for easy sharing, export it to PDF, so forth and so on. So really useful to be able to do that. And by selecting that history option, you can show which console users have been viewing this event. Now, this is super useful. So from things like this through to other areas where I can go through, for example, on tools. If I go to the right section, go to tools and manage AUPs. NetSupport DNA really does help give you the information you need around events, and there's evidence from things like inspections, from tracking the AUPs to monitoring the report of concern activities and there's various outcomes. All those archived reports, viewing the safeguarding keyword reports, so forth and so on. Staff can really easily demonstrate a great understanding of the safeguarding topics within their school and provide evidence for the actions, the timelines, so forth and so on, linked to any triggered events. With NetSupport DNA, it's important to note that there are varying degrees of access within DNA depending upon who you are. Now, I'm currently logged in as the administrator for safeguarding, and so I can see everything related to safeguarding. If I'm a safeguarding user, I only see those concerns and issues that are attached to me. If I'm the admin, I get to see most things. But if I go, for example, now into concerns, I'll just on here go to Home, eSafety, and then concerns. You can see the full list of concerns here, and I can see these because I am the safeguarding administrator. However, if I was the network manager using DNA for my network management jobs, sure, I can see the phrase cloud, like I can see here, and I can go through and I can see some information. But when we have more detail in the concern section, the network manager, the non-safeguarding admin or safeguarding user, would not be able to see all the information here. Lots of these things like the name and the date and the PC and so forth and so on are redacted, so that only the relevant people with the right responsibilities for the particular job of safeguarding get to see that information. So I'm now logged in as a safeguarding admin, and because of that I can now go in and I can view all of these different reports here. Now you'll notice I've got a status here as new, status here in progress, and I can use this feature here just to sort of close them down so I can see them in a really quick and easy filtered way, so I can see all the closed activities here, all the in progress ones here. I can see who has been reported to and who's dealing with it, and you can see the follow-up notes here. So spoken to Matt, he's told me who the bullies are, so forth and so on. Great place and space to sort of keep all that information directly in there. So as the admin user, I can go into any of these. I can scroll across and go to the plus symbol just here to the right of the entry. I get more information in here. I get the concern text in here. I can put any notes I want to put in here. I can tick if I've notified parents. I can change the state from in progress to closed. I keep it on in progress. And that's where we can pop all the various bits and bobs that we need to in here. If the student hasn't added extra information, such as their tutor group or their year group or other things related to that, then we can use this place and space to do all of that. And when I go on to OK, that will then be all sorted with those various parts that I need to include in there. So all new triggers are highlighted as being new, and when staff are reviewing them, like me as a safeguarding admin, I can mark it as progressed and completed. We've just seen that. Each status, as you can see, has a different color code. So we've got the sort of pink color for the new, the blue for in progress, grey for closed. And users can filter this view so it only shows certain statuses, and we've seen that with the concertina effect here, just hiding things in and out. Now this is really helpful and really useful to members of staff who have responsibility for safeguarding to keep track of which ones need reviewing, and let supporting staff know where to pick them up if others are on holiday or any of these sorts of things. Now bear in mind that we have the safeguarding admins and the safeguarding users. Okay, so the admin would get to see everything, whereas if I was a safeguarding user, in this view here for concerns, I would only be seeing those results that would have triggers and concerns and reports which are highlighted to me. So within NetSupport DNA, there are two main types of users. You have your network managers who use DNA for all the amazing things that DNA can be used for managing devices, deploying resources, so forth and so on. But then you can have your safeguarding users, of which I am one of them. So when one of the great things that you can get with NetSupport DNA around safeguarding is the ability to report a concern. Now, there is an option inside here, which I'll go through in another section, where teachers can report a concern themselves. A concern has just come in, so I can access that. If I'd been quick enough, I could have clicked on it and taken myself through to that notification. Alternatively, though, I can go to the concerns option here on my toolbar. You might not see that straight away. You need to make sure you're clicking on eSafety just here to get the full menu up on the right-hand side. But click onto concerns, and I can see that KTH has just reported that she's being bullied online and at school in maths of all subjects. So I can right click on here, I can view that, I can add some notes, I can attach a document, I can print it out, I can reassign it to somebody else, I can archive it if it's actually dealt with. But let's go into view for a second, and I can see where it happened, who it was, who it's been reported to. I can save and share all that information. And obviously, if a child in my school is being bullied, that's something that I want to speak to that child about. Maybe it's an issue in a particular lesson. In here, she's mentioning maths, so I can speak to the head of maths or her maths teacher and try and sort of unpick and dig deeper into the issue and find out actually what's going on there. Another really helpful feature inside NetSupport DNA's safeguarding features is the ability to reassign tasks and users related to a particular concern. Now, that's useful if somebody's off sick or someone's on holiday. And whilst you might have teachers who have their generally set holiday sequence with half terms and various breaks at Christmas, Easter, and summer, office staff work differently, and they will take annual leave, as you might do in a normal organisation. So sometimes it's useful to be able to have the ability to reassign a task, a concern, to a different member of staff, and there are a variety of ways in which you can do that. The first step is to simply select the item, so we can do it just here. And you'll notice on the toolbar at the top, so long as we're in here, in the eSafety section, you can see the option here to reassign. Okay, and as you can see from the little pop-up, it allows you to reassign this concern to a different safeguarding user. Alternatively, I could just right-click on that particular user there, and you'll notice that reassign is in the contextual sub-menu here as well. So I click on reassign, and I can simply choose a different person who is a safeguarding user. So I'll change it to, let's say, Andy, and I hit reassign, and that will then reassign that task to Andy. Now, again, super useful for lots of different potential use case scenarios, but really helpful. And the additional thing to notice is that when this happens, and you may have noticed actually, if I just go back into here a second and go to reassign, you'll notice that everyone's email addresses are on the side over here. So what happens is once someone's had their concern reassigned to them, both yourself as a person reassigning it and the person who has that concern assigned to them will receive an email confirmation to say that reassignation has taken place, so they're fully aware of any activities they then need to do to follow up and update and work on that particular concern in question. So here I am again logged in as a safeguarding user and safeguarding admin, in fact. And what I wanted to share in this section with you is how you can see a history of concerns. Now, when you work in education, you'll know that, unfortunately, if an incident happens with a student, sometimes it can happen on a repeated basis. Things around bullying, threats, so forth and so on. And so part of that, and one of the difficult things as part of that job is to sort of unpick and think about the wider history of those different things that happen with those young people. So, great feature hidden inside NetSupport DNA, not too deep and very easy to find, is the ability to look at a student's history of reports on the safeguarding side across a period of time. Now, please bear in mind this is only available if you're logged in as a safeguarding user or admin. And what you can do is you can simply choose one of the students from your list. So let's say, for example, I choose this one here. And bear in mind, we've pre-populated this with some dummy demo material. Okay, but I can, and you can just see a new entry just come in that I popped in a moment ago, actually. But if I click onto this one here from KTH, And you can see actually KTH has sent a few things through. If I go through into the phrase cloud, I can see on suicidal that KTH has put some things in here as well. So if I go back into my concerns section and I select this one here, we can see I've got this option here to go to history, and that shows all, as you can see from the little pop-up there, the contextual pop-up. It will then show the history for that particular user. And what's really nice about this is that we can then see it in this calendar view, and we can view that by day, week or month, or just on today. And from there we can then dive deeper into some of these things and look at them directly from the calendar, and like you can normally, you can print them, save them, so forth and so on. But it's a really nice way. So the job is very difficult, whichever way you look at it, when you're working in safeguarding. But the ability to use this feature to sort of track concerns, go through your weeks and see where they've sort of formed before, so forth and so on, is a really, really useful feature. And it gives you, the user, the ability to sort of review any patterns or details of issues raised over time. So just to repeat how we do that, we simply choose one from the list. So let's say we'll choose this one here now, Matt. Okay, and I will then simply go to history at the top, and it will then show, and it's not here for quite some time, so I might not see that on the scrolling. There we go. So we can see any sort of repeated history there. So clearly there's no real history there from Matt, so not something to worry as much about perhaps as it was with that other student. Go back onto here, choose history. You can see 2 in 2 days. That's starting to be a worrying trend. So tomorrow I might be thinking, crikey, I hope that Katie doesn't put some more stuff in there. But again, gives you that opportunity and the option to keep on top of and track and monitor any progress related to a particular individual. So NetSupport DNA has many features related to safeguarding and keeping children safe in education. As you're probably aware, you're probably watching these videos because you are a NetSupport DNA customer and you want to find out more about the safeguarding features. One of the fantastic features within here is a collection of a plethora of safeguarding resources to help you, help the students in the school, which can be easily shared. And one of the ways in which you can access that is not through the phrases section here. If you go into home and then make sure you've got the e-safety option selected here, don't go into the phrases section, go into concerns, and you'll see that the ribbon on the end here changes, and you now have this section here called safeguarding resources. Now there are lots and lots of resources here. They are categorized and lots of information on each of these. So there's a description here. You've got a contact number, the website address, the name of the organisation. So take the Internet Watch Foundation, for example. If you want to get in touch with them, go to their website there, use the contact form. If it was more directly with someone like the NSPCC or Crime Stoppers or Rape Crisis or wherever, then you have these all the information you need to share there. And if you go into region, you'll see, if I just change that, let's say, for example, to United States, you will then see the contextually relevant safeguarding resources available for that particular country. And as you'll see, we've got quite a few countries covered, from Australia to Canada to France to Germany, so forth and so on. So this is really nice and lovely, and it's fantastic to have knowledge of all the different tools that can help you in your work as a safeguarding lead or a safeguarding user within NetSupport DNA. Absolutely brilliant. But what you can also do within this section here, as you'll notice down the bottom, you have the option to exclude safeguarding resources from all keyword and internet monitoring. Now, you might be wondering, what does that mean? So what it means is, if a child by themselves chooses to go to, and I'll go back and use the United Kingdom example here. So let's say a child goes onto Childline using a school device, being monitored by NetSupport DNA, and goes in there or goes to Frank and wants to talk about, someone's trying to give me some drugs and I want to learn about this and all these sorts of things. You can make it so by ticking this box, if a student does that, they can do that confidentially. So any text or triggers that are typed in whilst on any of the sites that are listed within the safeguarding resources will be excluded from any of the results that are inside NetSupport DNA. Now, whether you choose to use that feature and have it excluded, or whether you'd like to still have it there to raise any concerns you may have, it depends on your context. As we know with the risk index, context is absolutely paramount. So think carefully about your organisation and what's relevant for you, your school, your children, your community, and make your own choice about how you'd like to use that. However, we like the fact that we can give you that option should you want to actually take it and use it and all of that. So here we have instant access to lots of online support resources covering topics such as FGM, drug addiction, grooming, bullying, and they're all available from the NetSupport DNA safeguarding icon on a PC. Staff can also manage the pre-populated list, and so if you find an extra resource that you want to add into here, it's simply a case of going to add and then fill in the information, so the name, the URL, any phone numbers if possible or relevant, and a little description, and hit OK, and that will be added into your list. And so this is a nice way, again, making the choice on the bottom here. If you want students to have confidentiality in these sorts of things, if students don't feel comfortable reporting these concerns, it at least gives them those resources to help them access help externally from the school should they wish to. Now, whilst DNA will track the keywords and various things being typed into devices across your setting, sometimes children do report safeguarding issues, not digitally but orally. Through conversations. It could be to a form tutor, it could be to you directly as the safeguarding lead, but you still want a means and way of actually keeping a record of all of these different sorts of conversations. Certainly very, very important, and you can add these sorts of concerns into DNA yourself manually. When logged in as a safeguarding user, simply go to the home ribbon like where you can see right now, and then if you go into eSafety, you'll then notice on the far right hand side we've got a bunch of options in here, one of which is add concern. So you can go into add a new concern and you can pop in the things that are concerning you. You can put your name in there, change date and time to when it happened, any relevant documents or other things, photographs of bullying examples, which could be in notes or other things, can be popped in there and saved by going to the browse feature. And then you could then select who you'd actually like to make the safeguarding concern sort of related to. If you've divided up how you deal with different things, it could be different people working different days of the week, it could be linked to the severity of the claim, so forth and so on. When you've finished and you've filled in all the information, simply hit add, and it'll add it to the list of concerns that you have within your concerns area just here. That's really, really helpful, because not only does that help stop any incidents recorded on bits of paper from going missing, but it helps prevent the concern from being forgotten about or not being reported or recorded correctly. We would always advise that you do these things in a timely fashion so that when the things are fresh in your mind and you've made some notes, tell, explain, describe, following the TED sort of procedures, those kind of things, it's a really great way of getting the information to one safe place and space where all those who are, we're all as educators thinking about safeguarding as being high on our priority list, but when you are managing and leading on these sorts of things, what you really want is a nice place where you can keep all of these things together in one safe place and space. And so by using the Add Concern button on the Safeguarding Navigation tab, you as DSL or counsellor can use this method to quickly transfer, record any paper-based concerns into DNA. As I said, you can then sort of select which member of staff you'd like to report the student's concern to, and that will enable that person to then track the concern, reassign it, and record any follow-up actions directly from within inside NetSupport DNA. And like with all of these different concerns, you can print out records, you can share them easily, group them together, all sorts of things to help you manage and make your job, which is a difficult job, let's be fair, being the DSL or counsellor within your school. It helps make that job that little bit easier, and you'd be safe and peace of mind that the work you're doing is all safe and collected together into one safe place and space. So one of the great features about NetSupport DNA and all the various features that are in here, of which there are quite a few, is the flexibility that having all these options available to you can give you. Now, in previous videos within this training session, you'll have seen me show you previously how to do things around internet metering, and here we can go to URL lists, and within here we can add our approved sites, restricted sites, all this sort of thing. Okay, which enables you to shepherd students into making good choices about the sites they visit and so forth and so on. Equally, though, we can do a similar thing with the programs, apps, so forth and so on that you might have installed on your devices across your whole IT sort of estate. And we can do that through the option which is just to the right of internet metering, and we call that application metering. Now, please bear in mind that you need to be logged in as an administrator rather than being your safeguarding user or safeguarding admin. You need to be in here as an admin to do this kind of activity. And what we're going to do, we're going to jump into here now. We're going to go to restrictions, and we're going to sort of think about a scenario using a game which comes installed as standard on Windows devices, 3D Pinball. Now, obviously, during the school day, you don't want 3D Pinball being available, but it may well be the case that you want to have 3D Pinball available for sort of before school and after school clubs. So I'll talk you through how you go about doing these sorts of things. So the first thing to do is to select the item on your application list here, like so. The next thing to do will be to go through and choose whichever PC suite or set of machines you want to be sort of restricted or restricting and opening up for these particular purposes. So I'm just going to jump into the AD containers just here. I'm going to go to local, and I'm going to go to students, and I'm going to go to year 9, year 8 and year 7. Alternatively, if you've got it all depends on how you've got things set up. And I could, for example, go through instead into departments, and in here we've got some sort of fake schools set up. So I could choose Kingsley College, and I could just choose all of the devices in Kingsley College. You can see it's 131 of 262 of the total that are available within the entire setup. So there we have it, set up 131 of 262. The next thing we need to do is to make that restricted. So we'll make it restrict all, and that's going to change the icon from being the little tick box we can see just here to being blocked with the shield and the little black cross in the middle. So let's say your before school club runs from 7 till 8 a.m. So we can just click onto these bits here, and that changes that to unrestricted. And let's say your school after school club runs from 3:30 till 5 p.m. So unblock there. And that's all we need to do, except for one more final thing, which is to hit OK over here. And it tells us we've changed the application restrictions. Do you want to apply this change now? Yes, please. And that's now set up. Now, you may well find that it comes up with an error and it says that you can't do that. Now, often the reason why that is the case is because your settings, so I'm just going to go through to settings on the ribbon here. And I go to manage existing profiles, and I'll choose the global default profile. I'm just going to go to settings just here. And this is where we can get to lots of settings around those particular users. I'm going to go to my application metering, and I'll just jump back a second actually, close that. You can see if I go into settings here, great. And we've got restrictions enabled is turned on. We can see that on just here, look. Now if I go through, it may well be that across the whole of your organisation, you've got restrictions turned off. So if you find when you try and do that thing like I've just done there a moment ago, where I've set up 3D Pinball for use before school and after school, and then it doesn't work, best suggestion would be to come through to here and make sure you have this set to enable. And once you've enabled it, hit save, and then go back into the application metering and just do it again. And that should then sort that out for you. If it doesn't work, please do get in touch with NetSupport technical support, and we'll be very happy to help you get that sorted. Our fantastic support team is always available to help you with that. But hopefully that will explain how you can do the application metering, and if it doesn't quite work for you straight away first time, how you can actually go about fixing that and solving that problem should you encounter it. Having been a head of department for computing and had lots of roles and responsibilities in schools around the safe use of technology for more than 20 years, I know the importance of having acceptable use policies. The thing is, with an acceptable use policy though, same goes for staff as well as students, to be honest. It's very easy to forget the various terms and conditions that colleagues and pupils and students subscribe to. And so, helpfully, built into NetSupport DNA, we do have some acceptable use policy strategies to support the correct use, shall we say, of technology that you would prefer to have within your organisation. Sometimes that can be about agreeing to only visit educational websites or treating the hardware with respect, or under COVID times, sort of making sure you agree to clean the keyboard afterwards, so forth and so on. Lots of different sort of case scenarios for reminding people of what they've agreed to in the AUP they might have signed at the beginning of an academic year. So what we can do with NetSupport DNA is we can actually go through to the tools section here on the ribbon, and we've got our manage AUP section just here. So if I choose that, you can see we've got a few example scenarios and example accessible use policies available just here. We've got one for pupils, we've got one for staff, we've got one for visitors to the trust. And these will present themselves once they log on to a device and they click to confirm that they've been accepted. So for example, if I click onto this one here, I can see it's assigned to certain users, to pupils, and you assign them through going to the assign section here, and then using the tree feature, choose those people which are relevant for that one. And we can see that this policy has been accepted 3 times by 3 users. So we've got these in here, and that's where we can manage all these different things. And I can sort of click onto this one here and go to edit and tweak it and change it at some point in time. I can't do it straight away because it's in use right now, so I'd need to duplicate that and then edit it then. But the thing I wanted to point out as well is that, and this is a really nice feature again within DNA, is if we go to new just here, we can start with a blank one, and this is where we could duplicate the one we've already got here. So it's an easy to find option through new and then duplicate. But what's lovely is we've got some example templates. So for example, if we've got one around sort of health and social distancing, we could just choose that one there like so. And then it comes up, and you see we've got like a little WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get text editor. And we've got the sample sort of text and things in place just here. Must wear a PPE or face masks and so forth and so on. And if we're happy with that, we can just click OK. If we want to change something, we can just highlight it and just change that, say, sort of straight away instead of immediately. Use some simpler language. And when you're happy with it, all you have to do, and you can say format it with different fonts and sizes, make it bold, underline, change the colour to sort of stress things. You might want to make the sort of title here a different colour, so you can just choose from the drop down the colour red, let's say, for example. So lots of opportunities to sort of tweak it and make it your own, but a good starting point to have the sort of sample text here first to help you start and so forth and so on. So when you've changed all of those things in there, simply go to OK, give it a name, so we'll call it example, and we'll just call it health and safety, like so. We could go in and put more description. We can make an option where a user can decline the policy, and you can make it that if they don't agree with it, they're logged straight out of the computer, so we can tick that if we want to, for example. And we can choose the frequency, so show every time someone logs in, once per user. You can show it every time a user logs in, once per user, show once per user, so forth and so on. You can have an acknowledgement of none, or user must tick the box, or they must enter their name. So lots of things we can do to pop those things in place and make sure they're checked and so forth and so on. And then you can also tick a box at the bottom here to log the user out if the policy is not acknowledged within 5 minutes. So make the choices that you want for your organisation, and when you're finished, simply click the OK button just here, and you'll see that's now in place. Then the final part would then be to assign that. So if I go to assign, and then just like we did before, let's say I wanted to assign it to Kingsley College, tick the box there, hit OK, and then all the users within that particular setup would have to accept that policy upon log on. And that is how we do AUPs. It's really flexible. It gives support for delivery and tracking of AUPs across your school or your multi-academy trust or your district. You can apply it to not just people, but to devices. So it could be an AUP for, let's say, an exam room or a library or someone like that. It also supports multiple policies for separate staff and students, and there's some templates in there to help you as well. The full tracking and exception reporting is provided, and one of the things that I particularly love about it is supporting students about the role they play in ensuring their own online safety, that whole sort of digital citizenship message. So it really empowers them to, be involved and recognise the rules and then try and adhere to them based upon the AUP that's shared with them when they log on to their machine. One area to be mindful of is the issue around false alarms. And whilst the contextual keyword triggering within NetSupport DNA is absolutely superb. It doesn't provide for specific context all of the time. And to help the software learn, what we can do is we can pick out certain keywords that come up, for example, within the phrase cloud that we can see here on the screen in front of us, and then we can assign that to be a false alarm. Now, obviously, things like, and I'm going to have to just hover over these words rather than say them to save my embarrassment. But some of these words are clearly going to be, required to stay in there. Okay, things around suicide, for example, radicalization, jihadism, some sort of words to describe bedroom behaviours, shall we call them. But some words, for example, like spice over here, might come up quite frequently because students are busy working in food technology. Now, what you can do is you can set certain words to be set up and shared as false alarms. You've gone through, you found out that the person, if I go into spice, for example, here, I can go and see Peter and say, but sir, I was in food technology. And I double check with their teacher, Mr. Champion, and Mr. Champion said, no, we were looking at spicing on curries or whatever it is we were doing. So what I can do, now that I'm actually in this bit here, I can go into here and I can choose the option on the toolbar up here called false alarm. So go into here, choose false alarm, and that's now set as a false alarm. I can add a little note in here if I want to and say this was triggered in Mr. Champion's lesson. So I'll just put Mr. Champion just to save time while I'm presenting and recording right now. And once I've done that and I've popped that in there, I can add that through like so. And a little note there tells everyone why it's a false alarm, so forth and so on. So really helpful. Nice little addition on here. It doesn't remove spice from being a keyword trigger because, as you can see, it is a synthetic cannabis. It's highly addictive and so forth and so on. Okay, so obviously it's a keyword. We want to remain in there, but in this instance, very clearly, we've been able to pop it in there and talk about it as being a false alarm in this particular instance. And that's how you add in false alarms in NetSupport DNA. As we've shared a few times in these various videos showing you the safeguarding features here in NetSupport DNA, we've talked about how important context is. Now, we know this in so many different ways, but some things are priorities in one school compared to another. Let's take a bit of a craze around a certain thing, around some bullying or some potential sexual behaviours or conversation, derogatory terms, and something is a real focus for the school. Let's say they're using a particularly bad word. Lots of people are saying it, typing it in messages, so forth and so on, and it's a target for you as a school to try and reduce that. So what you can do is, if you come through from main home ribbon and then click onto eSafety, what you can then do is go through to the phrase list just here, and what you can do is you can change the severity of a word, of a keyword. So every keyword and phrase inside NetSupport DNA that's being sort of captured through the safeguarding software can have its own, does have its own individual severity level. Now, whilst we set those as standard, as you can see, each of these have got their own sort of priority levels. Some are off, some are set to low, and you can change each of these different words. But let's say, for example, students are using the inappropriate word here. Okay, and I want to change that severity because it's something that's being used frequently. We want to try and sort of stamp it out of its use in the school and all these different things. So to modify the level, to sort of create a sort of higher alert with it, what we can do is you can go into here, and actually this process can be true for everything. And there are an awful lot of keywords, as we can see from just some simple scrolling quickly there. But if I wanted to change the severity of this particular word or anything else related to that word, actually, if I simply go to the word modify over here on the right hand side, now that I've got the word selected, go to modify, and within here I can change the priority level. So it's currently set to low. I could turn it off if I wanted to, medium, high, urgent. And so what I can do is I can click on urgent, and then what I can do is, and what these icons here represent basically is what will happen when that happens. So it's recorded, it sets an alert, you get an email, it'll take a screenshot and record a video of it actually happening. So that's gathering lots of evidence to help you have a conversation with any children or colleagues, hopefully not colleagues, who make the mistake of using that word in whatever tool, whatever it is that they're using, so that you can keep a really close eye on that. When you're ready to change it, you simply go to OK, and you'll see now that that's been set to an urgent rating. And that's how you set it up. The final thing to do would be to just simply click OK, and you then notify agents of these changes, and agents will pick up those changes next time they connect to the server, but it should happen just automatically for most instances. Hit yes, and now any time that word is typed into any of the devices within your setup, it'll be flagged and triggered at the level that you've now set it to. And as I said, you can do that for any of the words which are in there in a very similar way to which you can then actually go in, like I shared earlier, about how you can actually add in your own words simply by going to the phrase list option here, going to add, and then typing in the phrase and the description and the category that you feel it should be going into. So that's how you can manipulate and change the severity level of keywords that you have set up with inside NetSupport DNA. As I've shared in a few of the videos that you've had the opportunity to view around the use of DNA, NetSupport DNA, you'll have learned that you can do things like exclude certain keywords for monitoring. You can also increase or decrease the severity. And one of the great things, I mean, we've mentioned context an awful lot during the course of these various videos on using NetSupport DNA, but the one area we haven't sort of dug deeper into, and we have a little bit looking at how we can sort of set time zones for different access to different things. For example, we saw that before in application metering, where we allowed the 3D pinball game to be available for sort of preschool club and before school club, breakfast club sort of activities, and after school club activities. But it may well be that you want to exclude some tools, some programs, some apps from keyword monitoring. So let's say, for example, next Wednesday afternoon, period 5 is the regular whole school PSHE session, where every child goes off and has a PSHE session with their tutor. And during that session, next week as PSHE coordinator that you're going to be covering suicide. So lots of words are going to be typed into PowerPoint. Students are creating these presentations on suicide and sources for help and all these different things. It doesn't have to be suicide. It could be any activity which is going to sort of be full of sort of trigger keywords. But because that would happen in PowerPoint during period 5 on that Wednesday afternoon, to avoid and to safeguard DNA itself from lots and lots of false triggers, because all of your learners are actually studying that thing at a particular point in time, what we can do is we can actually make it so that that particular tool isn't monitored for keywords. So to do that is really simple. To do that, we simply go into settings, and you might think you might go into application metering. You do not. You need to go to settings, and from there you'll need to go to here into manage existing profiles. Choose the profile which covers the deployment that you're trying to sort of configure and work upon, and where you're trying to exclude PowerPoint from that list. So you simply then go to where it says settings, just here. And that brings up lots and lots of options here. Now, you may again think you're going into internet metering. You're not. This is about phrase monitoring, these keyword triggers. So if you go to phrase monitoring, just here, and then within there, you can see you can ignore certain applications when monitoring phrases. So we want to choose a particular application to not be sort of tracking things that are being typed into that particular tool. So what we need to do is simply go into where it says application lists, just here on the right hand side. And from here you can already see the applications chosen to ignore. Lots of Adobe Acrobat DC just over here. But I mentioned we were looking at PowerPoint, so if I simply just type in PowerPoint into here, it should take a second, and we can then see the various PowerPoint tools that are there, and there it is. So simply tick PowerPoint like that, and you'll see the various instances of PowerPoint that might be available across your deployment. It's in the applications to ignore section. We can see it's in the application list excluded apps. So we simply now just go to OK, and then we need to save that and close that. And that is how you can choose to exclude certain applications from monitoring, which can significantly reduce your occurrence of false alarms, particularly when a class or a group of classes or a whole school, for example, might be typing in words that might, under normal circumstances, create triggers and need investigating and all those different things. And that's how you do it. There are many ways that NetSupport DNA has you covered, but when you're thinking about a much larger instance of DNA deployments across maybe a multi-academy trust or in a large secondary school, or even if you wanted to, actually, you can do this in a much smaller school where you want certain users for different year groups to only have access to information within DNA which is relevant to a particular type of user. What you can do is you can make it so that rather than having all of the options available, so if I just go into NetSupport Local here, for example, I can go to students, I can see all the years here in my little school, okay. But if I'm a head of year 8, if in my school I want to give my head of year 8 access to sort of monitor, manage, track all those different things for students in year 8, for head of year 8, then that person doesn't need all this extra information. And it could be confusing, it could slow processes down, it could make their job more difficult, they might end up looking at the wrong thing, so forth and so on. So what you can do is you can set up a specific user for that head of year role, as an example. Okay, if you're looking to find out how to set those users up, then please do check in our notes below, and in those notes it'll take you through to a guide where you can sort of go through it, and which is quite a high level activity, which we're not going to cover during this particular recording. But what I am going to show you is how that would then view for that particular person, and you can probably guess what it'll be like, because basically it's going to be all of this stuff removed and only the things which are left which are relevant. So if I just close DNA here for a second. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to NetSupport DNA console, and as you'll know, when you go on in, you need to put in your username and password. So I'm going to pop in the name this time of Ben. I'm going to pop in my very secure password like so, and it should now log me in as the head of year 8. And as I go into here, we can see that I've only now got access to year 8, so I can only see the year 8 information. So that makes it much easier for me as the head of year 8 to see all the things which are relevant to my year. It will probably require less training. I'm only being shown how to do things which are relevant to my year group, so forth and so on. So as you can see, very helpful, and this can be used in lots of different ways. So when you use NetSupport DNA across schools or big districts or multi-academy trust, or on an operational level, it's great to be able to see, at a strategic level, it's great to be able to see absolutely everything that's available across your entire IT real estate, but not everybody needs to see all those things. So what you can do is start to sort of break it down at a more sort of operational level, and then this feature allows a school to see its own data rather than other schools within your district or within your multi-academy trust, it really helps you to only see your own data, helps you be more mindful around GDPR across your particular school within your bigger, wider organisation. Lots of fantastic benefits from working in this kind of a way. And how nice it is to see these things here just for the year 8 group. There's only 3 concerns coming up with safeguarding here, only 26 phrase matches, so forth and so on. They're all low level, and so the dashboard becomes much more relevant to the person using it. Now obviously we can do that when we break things down on the side by clicking onto these different sections, and the right hand side here will always update. But in a way, we just want to try and make technology as easy as possible for its users. This is a great way of making it really pertinent for those specific users within those specific settings. Thanks.